In the wee hours of Saturday, October 26th, Israel finally executed its response to Iran's missile strike on Israel from October 1st. As we told you here on VisualPolitik, the Israeli response was measured, modest, limited. Israel did not touch either of the two most important elements for the Ayatollah's regime, that is, its oil infrastructure or the facilities of its nuclear program. Instead, the Israeli Air Force, with an operation involving more than 100 aircraft, including several of its shiny new F-35 Adir, attacked several industrial and military facilities linked to Iran's missile and drone program. Yet the damage was very limited. The response was perfectly calculated to avoid causing more serious damage. And the question is, why the hell didn't Israel dare to go further? Why is it that in Jerusalem they seem to behave one way with Hezbollah, Hamas, and Lebanon, and very differently with Iran? Well, on this channel we've already told you that one of the reasons is Tehran's ability to use its missile arsenal to attack the oil fields of the Middle East or Israel itself with a massive bombardment, rendering air defenses useless. Nevertheless, that's not the whole story. The truth is that Israel also has a weakness that is rarely talked about, and about which Iran has already made threats on some other occasions. VisualPolitik viewers, pay close attention to what we're about to tell you if you really want to understand what's happening in the Middle East. Let's get started. But first, let me say one thing very quickly. There are still a lot of people watching VisualPolitik who aren't subscribed to the channel. This is something you can change in just a few seconds. Click on the subscription button, click on the bell, and that's it. You'll instantly become part of this amazing community, and you'll be aware of the videos we publish. And to those of you who already follow us, I want to thank you once again for all of your support. Without you, none of this would even be possible. You know that we strive to keep improving, but without you, it wouldn't mean much. So thank you. And with that said, let's get started. Leviathan is a giant sea beast that is considered the incarnation of chaos in Judaism. It's a terrible monster that terrorized the Jews, and that these days, in the midst of a war in the Middle East, could be a huge blow to Israel. And no, we haven't gone crazy. Leviathan, as well as being a mythological figure, is also Israel's most important offshore gas field, a source of enormous wealth in recent years. It could now, however, be one of the country's weak points, because since Israel discovered and started exploiting the significant gas fields under its territorial waters in the Mediterranean Sea a few years ago, the economic system of this country has changed considerably. These days, more than 70% of all electricity produced in Israel depends directly on gas extracted from the Leviathan, and other fields, such as the Tamar field. Both are located off the coast of Israel. And why do we say this may be a weakness? Well, because these fields have become the backbone of Israel's energy infrastructure. So any direct attack on these platforms, or on the facilities that receive the gas on the coast, could plunge the country into a huge energy crisis. In a way, you could say that the Leviathan and Tamar fields are to Israel what the island of Haag is to Iran, as we explained to you in this video. But wait a minute, Israel? Gas? What on earth are we talking about? Well, you see, Israel has made a dramatic turnaround in its energy position since the Leviathan and Tamar gas fields were discovered, and especially since they began to be exploited. For decades, Israel had a lot of problems with energy. However, that changed dramatically with these resources. In this way, these fields have not only allowed Israel to drastically reduce its dependence on foreign gas imports and earn a lot of money, but they've also played a key role in Israel's political position. Among other reasons, because Israel now supplies gas to Jordan, and also has significant agreements with Egypt. Let's just say that these resources have become a blessing for both the Israeli economy and politics. How much gas are we talking about? More than 800 billion cubic meters of gas. To put this in perspective, it's roughly the amount needed to supply gas to a country like Spain for more than 20 years, or to Germany for almost a decade. For a country like Israel, it's a real energy gem, but it would also be a perfect target in the midst of a war, or even a prime terrorist target, because Israel cannot afford to lose these fields. The energy it provides not only powers its industry and fuels its homes, but it's also vital for sustaining the military effort. If an attack were to damage these fields, or the Israeli storage infrastructure or pipelines, it would result in a major loss of revenue, blackouts, it would shut down many production centers, and ultimately severely weaken this country's ability to withstand a protracted conflict. And naturally, this is something the Ayatollahs know perfectly well. Now, would an attack on these facilities really be feasible? How could it play out? Well, if there is one country in the region that has developed an extremely significant long-range attack capability, it is precisely Iran. We've already told you many times about its gigantic arsenal of ballistic missiles. Well, among these missiles, the Fatah 110 missiles are of particular concern to Israel.
The Fatah 110 missiles, with a range of up to 300 kilometers, have a precision guidance system, making them an ideal weapon for targeting specific infrastructure such as offshore gas platforms. In the case of Israel, we're talking about platforms that are located tens of kilometers offshore and are protected by Israel's missile defense.
But VisualPolitik community, it gets complicated. Fatah 110s are difficult to intercept because of their unpredictable speed and trajectory. And although Israel has very effective defensive systems, protecting these facilities from a barrage of such missiles may not be so straightforward. Of course, the Iranians would face a problem: flight range. As we've told you, these missiles that would be optimal for this operation have a limited range, barely 300 kilometers. Some versions allow attacking more distant targets, but even so, it would probably be insufficient. What's more, the farther away the target, the greater Israel's ability to act. Therefore, it's possible that if Iran wanted to attack these facilities, it would not do so directly, but through Hezbollah. It is suspected that it's already delivered missiles of this type to this organization, and could certainly deliver more in the future. Thus, the chances of a successful attack would be multiplied. And yes, this also explains Israel's obsession with clearing Hezbollah from southern Lebanon and destroying its arsenals and delivery systems. Just keep in mind that a successful attack on Leviathan or Tamar could cause major economic damage in Israel, probably even lead to energy rationing and the likely scheduling of numerous blackouts. So to what extent has Israel's gas changed? What is the real risk right now? Could Iran really try to attack these facilities? Well, we're going to look at that right now.
From blackouts to self-sufficiency.
Until a few years ago, Israel's energy dependence on the outside world was a point of enormous vulnerability. Importing oil and gas was crucial for the survival and functioning of the country. But naturally, buying power from your neighbors when you live in a contentious community can be a constant headache. In fact, the situation was such that even today, exact statistics on crude oil imports are a state secret in this country. It isn't known with certainty how much oil arrives or where it even comes from. But keep one thing in mind. In the past, Israel has faced such critical moments that it has sometimes had to exchange arms for oil with African dictatorships of very dodgy reputation. But obviously, when the Arabs didn't want to sell you their oil, there weren't many alternatives left. Nevertheless, the discoveries changed everything. Take a look at this news item from 2017.
Energy Minister. Natural gas can transform Israel's geopolitical status.
And that is exactly what happened. Today, the story has changed dramatically. Israel has gone from being an energy wasteland to becoming a key player in the region's natural gas market. The discovery of the Tamar fields in 2009 and Leviathan in 2010 was a historic turning point. With them, Israel gained a crucial strategic advantage: the possibility of achieving energy self-sufficiency without having to rely on potentially unstable or adversarial countries. With reserves of approximately 500 billion cubic meters of gas, and located 120 kilometers from the port city of Haifa, the Leviathan platform involved an initial investment of $3.75 billion US. Now, its reserves could supply Israel for the next 30 years. And as this is not the only operational field, Israel has started exporting its gas to Jordan, Egypt, and also to Europe.
The EU signs an agreement to buy natural gas from Israel through Egypt. Von der Leyen signs a historic agreement with Israel and Egypt to reduce energy dependence on Russia.
It stands to reason that this not only allows the country to bring in a lot of money, but also gives it a political advantage. These days, Brussels is more reluctant to mess with Israel. But yes, the discovery has also had great economic benefits. With gas, blackouts have ended. Local industry has become more competitive. Households have seen their energy bills go down, and the country risk has been reduced in terms of international investment. Not only that, it has also improved its regional position. For example, for Jordan, the state of Israel is now vital. It is its main source of water and gas. If Israel were to shut down the pipelines, the Jordanian economy would plunge into a deep crisis. For example, 40% of all their electricity needs are met by gas sold to them by the Israelis. So what does this mean? That it is in their interest to get along with the Israelis, which in a way is what helps us understand news stories like this one.
US Navy shoots down Iranian missiles. Jordan allows use of airspace.
And meanwhile, it's a very similar story with the Egyptians. Yes, this case, as you can see, is different, because Egypt has much more gas than Israel, but the reality is that right now, the sector in this country seems completely stagnant. Because among other reasons, its main and most promising field, the Zohr, is having many problems of water infiltration that is considerably delaying its exploitation. So the result is that Egypt has been importing natural gas from Israel for 5 years now, both to re-export it as liquefied natural gas and to cover all its domestic demand, a demand that is still greater than local production. In other words, without Israeli gas, news stories like this would be practically a daily event all year round, and not just in the summer months.
Short fuses in Egypt as blackouts stretch into sweltering summer. At least once a day, the hum of every fan, air conditioner, and fridge across Egypt goes quiet.
The result? It's not in Egypt's interests to have problems with the Israeli government. In short, you could say that gas has been something like winning a big prize in a lottery for Israel. But what if everything suddenly collapsed? And keep in mind, this is not just us speculating.
Iran threatens it will hit Israeli energy, gas sites if it is attacked.
VisualPolitik community, Israel has been conducting a lot of military successes in recent weeks. Nevertheless, it would be a huge mistake to forget that much of its productive fabric and its economic system depend on infrastructure in the Mediterranean that is really vulnerable. For the time being, expansion plans to increase production from these fields have already been put on hold.
Chevron suspends work on expansion of Leviathan gas field due to the escalating war. Operator of Israel's offshore reservoir halts infrastructure plans until April 2025. Construction was intended to boost production for export and domestic supply.
But are they really at risk? Wouldn't Iran be thinking that it's time to put its foot down after so many IDF successes? Well, let's answer these questions.
Think twice, Iran.
VisualPolitik community, we're facing a complex chess game. Should the Islamic Republic of Iran decide to attack Israel's lucrative natural gas fields, it would most likely seriously damage them and cause huge economic problems for its great enemy. Take note of this idea. Here on VisualPolitik, we've already told you in several videos how Iran has been preparing for years to strengthen its deterrence capability. Specifically, its missile arsenal could wreak havoc in the oil fields of the Middle East, and its navy could try, and would probably succeed in partially closing the Strait of Hormuz, while the Houthis could do the same with the Red Sea, provided they had a good supply of weapons. By itself, these operations give Tehran great deterrent power. However, implementing any of these actions would automatically spell the end of the Ayatollah's regime. International intervention, starting with the United States, and continuing with all the Arab nations, would be virtually certain. Now, an attack on Israel's gas center could be very different. The gas from the Leviathan and Tamar fields is very important for Israel, but it's practically insignificant for the global market. At present, these two fields produce only 0.5% of the gas extracted in the world. In other words, Tehran could consider this alternative as an intermediate solution. Iran could attack these fields and still retain its great deterrent power. That is, following the attack, Israel would probably strike back, but it would have to do so in a limited way. Why? Well, because attacking the island of Karg or maddening the Ayatollahs could unleash the economic earthquake I've already mentioned. Iran would still have all its deterrent power ready to be used. Of course, Israel could pursue other targets, the nuclear plan, more military facilities, or even government institutions. The point is that this attack on Israel could re-escalate the conflict, which is precisely what Iran doesn't want. That's due to Israel's potential response, and because of another life insurance that these oil fields have. I'm talking about Chevron. VisualPolitik community, Chevron is one of the companies operating in these fields. The question is, do you know where this company is from? Exactly, from the United States. Well, Chevron controls 25% of the Tamar field and 40% of Leviathan. What does this mean? Basically that Chevron, one of the largest energy giants in the United States, could have a lot of leverage in the White House. And Chevron not only controls these fields, it also wants to invest billions of dollars to expand its capacity, and also wants to build a multi-billion billion infrastructure to liquefy the gas on Israel's own shores. So logically, an Iranian attack would put an end to all these plans. And not only that, but also, and perhaps most importantly, there are US workers on these platforms. So if Iran were to attack them, that could force Washington to intervene. But at the same time, Iran's ability to carry out such an attack in any event means that Israel is not out of the firing line either. It is the assured economic destruction that we've already talked about here on VisualPolitik, which in a way is what explains why we aren't seeing things get out of hand right now. It's also what helps explain why the Israeli response on Saturday 26th of October was so subdued. As I've already said, we're witnessing a very interesting game of chess. But at this point, it's your move. Do you think that if it came to it, Iran would go after Israeli oil fields? Do you think this explains why the Israeli response to Iran's missile launch was so modest? Leave us your thoughts in the comments and let's start a debate. And if you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to VisualPolitik if you haven't already done so. Thank you very, very much for watching. All the best. See you next time.